Hello everyone, my name is Meredith Maughmer and welcome to my artist management presentation. Today I'm going to be representing the artist Gatlin, who is a 26-year-old singer-songwriter from Orlando, Florida, who first started releasing music in 2020. Jumping right into some audience demographics, I would consider these to be the five big demographics for people who like her music, people who are focused on kind of having that same experience. So people in their 20s, part of the LGBTQ plus community, who are kind of growing up and figuring out life, but also some people who are in that lower middle class and not big spenders. So people who don't have a lot of money, so they focus on having those experiences as opposed to owning a lot of things. And then also part of the alternative pop indie crowd. So I would consider that a demographic because some people consider that their style or their vibe. And in some places like indie, some people even consider that a lifestyle. So a certain way that people will dress and act and things like that. Jumping right in as well, here's a couple of venues that Gatlin has either played in the past or is going to be playing here shortly in the future. Those first two venues in Illinois and California were from the headline tour that she did in 2023. As you can see, they have more of a club capacity, so those smaller capacities, as opposed to the lower three, which is when she goes to open for Flip Turn here next month. Those are going to be some bigger actual venues. So it's going to be some great exposure for her, especially because those last two shows are actually sold out. So those are going to be good crowds for her to play to. Some similar artists that I would put in the same category would be Fletcher, Phoebe Bridgers, Billie Eilish, Halsey, and Muna. For Fletcher and Muna, I put them on here because of their pop sounds, but also their LGBTQ plus influences in their music, which Gatlin is starting to play around with as well. So I wanted to go ahead and include them here, especially because they're two lesser known artists. As opposed to, I think Phoebe Bridgers is a little bit more known. They kind of compare because of the, as I put it, sad girl vibes. Those kind of slower, more melancholy songs that have really deep lyrics usually, which is why I put Billie Eilish on here as well, which you know her because she's had some number ones on the Billboard charts, especially recently. But I also consider her to be sad girl vibes, but also have a bit of a pop influence in there as well. Same with Halsey, who I consider a pop girl, but she kind of has some rock vibes in there as well, which is another thing Gatlin's been playing around with. So I figured this was a well rounded way to describe her sound and the things that she has influence in her music. Now, what makes her different? So I know you're going to see singer songwriter on here and say, whoa, isn't everybody a singer songwriter nowadays? But I think that's very important to mention because having those multiple skill sets is going to help your chances of success. Because even if you start out, just having songwriting credits, you could eventually further your career one day because you've been making those connections. Yeah, you've only been a songwriter credit, but now we're going to let you do your own album. So I think that's very important to have those different skill sets. For her sound, I mentioned quite a few genres already that I think Gatlin is a part of, and I think that's very important to branch out to those different genres because then you have way more people that are open to listening to your music, and maybe they are here for the rock vibes, but they actually really love this one pop song that you made. So I think that's very important as well. For not being present, quote unquote, with the pressure to share everything on social media, she actually does not post a lot about her personal life. She posts mostly about music, which is great since this is her music social media that we've been able to find. So I think that's very important that I get to learn about who this person is through their medium, which is their music. For hometown, I cannot name a single artist who is from Orlando, Florida specifically off the top of my head. So I think growing up around this craziness that is the Orlando area, it gives a very unique perspective and experience, and I think that kind of shines through in her music as well. And then lastly, a headline tour with no label, I think is a great feat as an independent artist, and something that I think she's going to keep with her now for the rest of her career. Now for some marketing, doing some word of mouth marketing here. Starting off with buzz marketing, I did notice on social media that she's already followed by Chapel Roan, which is a big deal because we all know who Chapel Roan is at this point. Heard her on the radio at this point. So even if we don't directly use that to our advantage. We could maybe do some collaborations in the future, have some opportunities for Chapel to kind of talk us up or talk about us at some point, which could be a lot of great publicity and buzz, as it's stated. For community, there is already a website to sign up for updates and newsletters for Gatlin. However, I think there's a way that we can expand this so that we can have it as a community where the fans and artists can be connected, and also our fans can continue to talk about what we love about this music, so that way we can bring it out into the world and to other people as well. And for viral marketing, of course, that viral marketing depends on those social media postings, which we don't have a lot of for our personal life, but we do for our music. So I think we can up that and up the postings about our music, because the more we post, the more we have higher chances of going viral and having that one, finally become a TikTok sound or something like that. Now everybody's talking about us. Now, for the bio, I just listed the long bio here, but it talks about some parts of the singles that we kind of delved in deeper into some of the lyrics, some of the genres, and then also we've had 2 EPs and 1 album that Gatlin has released since 2020, which were able to garner her over 500,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, and some features on Apple Music playlists when they released. Again, she headlined her own tour in 2023 with 15 stops across the US, and now she has some other performances finally coming up for the band Flip Turn just next month. For a little bit more about her story, she was born here in Orlando in September of 1998. She said growing up, her dad played a lot of female powerhouse artists who inspired her to become an artist. So she studied at Belmont in Nashville for 2 years before dropping out, which apparently in Belmont is the thing you're supposed to do, is drop out, because that means you're doing something right. So I think we're doing pretty good so far. Moving on to our social media plan. Like I said, she doesn't post a whole lot, so I think having that more frequent planned posting schedule, even if it's just, planning things every 3 weeks, for example, on our main feed, and increase the use of our stories and things like that, is just going to be more opportunity for people to see us and kind of interact with us as well, and kind of keep people remembering who we are. When we're making more content for behind the scenes, we can keep that in our back pocket because we don't have to post all of it at the same time. We can also increase our interactions with fans on posts. She does like a lot of things and maybe comment back on some things, but we can always increase that, especially if we have more stuff that we're posting. We can also start adding our own original music to post, because now when we show up on someone's Explore page and they say, hey, I like this song. Oh, this is the artist? That's great. I'm going to follow them. Boom. That's a one-stop shop right there. Also, adding geolocations is another way for people to kind of find us, but only when it's safe to do so. We kind of don't want to, if we're still there, post, of course. So when it's safe to do so, we start adding those geolocations to make us more accessible. Here's our recording history here. Of course, we weren't able to play any of it because we just don't have time. But there's the 2 EPs are there on the left, Sugar Coated on top, out in 2020, and then To Remind Me of Home on the bottom, released in 2021. And then on the right is her album, I Sleep Fine Now, which was released in 2023 and allowed her to go on that headline tour. Each of these has about, I think one of them has 5, one has 6, and one has 7 tracks. There's also a few singles that she's released as well. So why have me as a manager? I've kind of listed my little shtick here. I'm very empathetic and optimistic, but I also have a desire to help others succeed. That's what I do at work. I'm a mentor. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit to having me on your team in that sense. In terms of connections, I of course am still building them. I'm still in school, but just because I only have connections in the theme park doesn't mean that those don't branch out into places that we can only dream of. So I think having those connections with my leaders, especially in entertainment as I know those shows and Atmo people too. So that having those people that could reach out and help us with things is going to be a huge benefit. Overall, thank you all for listening. I added my contact info here if anybody has any questions for me. I hope you'll also check out Gatlin's music, because I do think they're an incredible artist, and I can't wait to see where they move on to next.